Chapter 9, the preposition min, the interrogative hey, and notes on Hebrew syntax. We're now going to look at the preposition min. The preposition min can be a separable preposition or an inseparable preposition. When it's a separable preposition, it'll cause you no difficulty. It'll simply be the word min attached to the next word with a makef, and so you can say something like min davar, from a word, out of a word. And that's no problem. When it's an inseparable preposition, well, that's when we need to look at the different ways to attach it, and that's where the problem really becomes. Okay, with attaching a min preposition inseparably to another word, you're going to have a phenomenon known as assimilation, where we're going to assimilate the final noon of the min preposition to the first word of the following the first letter of the following word. So, by the way, this is something we have in English. In many languages, there's assimilation. If you look at the first footnote, I give you examples of this. But let's take a word like mature in English. If someone is not mature, what you would do is you would put a certain prefix on it, this in prefix, which comes from Latin. And what it does is it negates this word here. But as you can see as I wrote it here, I misspelled it. Because really what we have here is assimilation. We've got a noon. That's right, that's a noon. We have a noon up against another letter, and quite frequently in English, when you get this, you'll get an assimilation of the noon. And so as you know, the way we're really supposed to spell this is immature, like this. We don't say immature, it's immature. We have what's called an assimilation. This m, or mem, is assimilating the noon here, or the in there. And with a phenomenon that we see in English, we get the same thing. Now in English, if you have a word that has a vowel or something, you would not get the assimilation. You would see the in that situation. But with many of the consonants, you're going to get assimilation in English. And again, if you look at footnote 1, I give you more possibilities. So we get the same phenomenon in Hebrew. And so suppose we were to have a word like, again, Shemuel. And now we're going to go and we're going to attach the min preposition. We would have something like this. We would have the noon with a silent schwa. And in Hebrew, that's a problem. When noon has a silent schwa, very frequently, the letter after it is going to assimilate it. And so when that happens, you really get this. And as you know, Hebrew does not like to write letters consecutively. And so instead of getting that, what you're going to get is you're going to get this dagesh forte. And what is that dagesh forte? That dagesh forte is the noon of the min preposition. And again, there's a silent schwa with it also. So that's what you're getting. And so this is called assimilation. And you'd pronounce this Mishemuel or Mishemel or something like that. So again, you're getting assimilation, Mishemuel. Okay, so that's the normal way of doing it. But suppose you have a situation, Yehuda. We'll go back to this word again. And now you have a yod with a vocal schwa. Well, here we go again. We will have the assimilation, but we have a problem here, and that is this. We've got the Hirik yod again. And so when we have that, the love story is so strong. The love between these folks are so strong. Not only does it get rid of the vocal schwa, it gets rid of the dagesh forte. And you would say, Mihuda. That's how you'd pronounce this. And so the final answer is this. Mihuda, like you see here. That's the answer. So with a yo with a vocal schwa, you have to watch for that. Now, suppose the first word is a guttural. and this includes the resh. If you have a word that begins with a guttural, and so let's say something like, we'll do a resh here, like rosh. Suppose we have the word rosh, notice the quiescent aleph here, and we go to put a min preposition, we try to attach it. You know, obviously the resh is not going to take a dagesh forte, and so it's going to reject, and you're going to have a lengthening by compensation to a sere, and you'd say me rosh, like that. That's how you'd pronounce that. So that's the way you attach min inseparable prepositions. Next is section 3. We want to talk about attaching the interrogative hey. And for Proto-Hebrew, you would be a hey with a patach. So we want to keep that in mind. But again, the normal way that we do it with a regular word, with a non-guttural letter, you would have something like, let's say, davar. You have a dagesh lene there. And then you put the hey on with the patach originally, and even when you do that, you really want to go ahead and get rid of that dagesh lene. And so now, the hey is in the originally open pro-pretonic position. It's going to reduce to a schwa, but not to a regular everyday schwa. Remember, this is a guttural, the hey, so you're going to get the composite schwa, and you're going to get the composite schwa that has the patach. And so that's what you get. All right, and that's the normal way of doing it. Well, suppose, though, you have a vocal schwa. So you have a word like Shemuel. Now you go to put the hey on, and again, normally what you'd expect is reduction here, the patach being reduced, because the problem you have is, again, 2 consecutive vocal schwas. You can't have that. And so what's going to happen is this is going to become a vowel. And so what it's going to do is it's going to retain its original form. And really, to tell you the truth, it probably never reduced because of this. Well, it never really reduced. And you just have patach, and that's the way it's going to be with a vocal schwa. So you want to keep that in mind. But suppose you were to have a guttural. Suppose you have a guttural here. And so my example I give in the book is this. Here we have a guttural. And if you have a guttural, the hey will also be pointed with just a patach, not reduced to a vocal schwa or anything like that, composite vocal schwa. No, you're just going to get a patach there. And that's that one we're going to have to, I don't know how to explain that exactly. Could this be some type of implicit doubling? I don't know. We really don't know what's going on here, but you get the patach. All right. But suppose you get a guttural, and that guttural has the long kamets. Well, when you get that and attach it on, you're going to get the segol. Again, Hebrew loves this combination. And indeed, there are certain cases in which it is difficult to tell, am I looking at an article or am I looking at an interrogative hey? And an interrogative hey would simply make a question out of the statement. And the answer is sometimes it's only context. It can be identical. In this case, I have a verb here, and that would almost inevitably argue for the interrogative hey. Very rarely in Hebrew will an article be on a verb. So that would be an interrogative hey in the example I gave you. But there can be example of nouns where it can go either way. It can be a real difficulty. So that's how we attach the interrogative hey to a word. And again, if you look at section 4, I give you a review of these things, and again at the end of chapter 9 you'll also see another review. And now in section 5 I talk about a Hebrew syntax, sentences and clauses without verbs. In Hebrew you can have sentences and clauses that are simply nouns or nouns and adjectives put together, and you really don't have a verb. You don't have anything like a finite verb. And so when that happens, you must supply some form of the verb to be in English, like is, was, and so forth. In context, will have to tell you if you want the present tense or past tense. usually what you do is you look at the verb before it, and if it's past, then you make the form of the verb to be past also. And so really what you're doing, though, like in Arabic you have to supply, if you have a list of nouns and adjectives, some form of kana. But in Hebrew, the word is haya. And so really, haya is sort of assumed. It has to be supplied when you have a clause or a sentence without a verb. So just remember that. And we've really already discussed that one time under the ma. And so in the example I give you David Adam. And so really we have to supply David is, was, will be a man. And so in Hebrew, what has to be supplied, again, is some type of haya, some form of that verb, which, again, would be the same thing. All right, and now we want to do some more accents, in particular disjunctive accents here. And now we want to look at the zakef katon, the zakef gadol, and the segulta. Remember before, we made these boxes into words. And again, we want to see these as words. And remember, at the end, we have sof pasuk. And somewhere within the verse, they'll have the major break, and that's an athnach. And we've already had that. But now we want some more breakers. And let's make this a little different. Of course, with the sof pasuk, you're going to get the saluk there. And I didn't write that, but you know that. But now, let's say this is just the first half of a verse, and that this is a athnach. So there's another half of the verse over here. You can further divide the athnach part of the verse with what I'm about to give you, and especially something called zakef katon. It is two dots vertically stacked. They look like a vocal schwa, simple vocal schwa. But they're above the word, not below. Down here, that would be a vocal schwa, simple vocal schwa. And so what that is doing is it's putting a pause here, or a break. Now sometimes they can give you pausal forms with them, but that's pretty rare. It doesn't happen that often. So when I say the word pause, don't think I'm talking about a pausal form. But in other words, you have to put a break here. And so again, if I were translating this, I would group these three words together, and I would group these three words together. But then ultimately there's a super level that I would group them all. So, but again, I would first group these three, and then group the whole six together. And so again, this is a nice breaker for syntax. The zakef katon, which means the small zakef, will always be with the accented syllable. So you can tell the accent in a Hebrew, where the accent is, by the zakef katon when it's put on there. And so again, it helps to divide things up. And you can have the zakef katon in the athnach part of the verse, or if this were the other half of the verse, namely the saluk half of the verse, again, you can have a zakef katon. There's also something called the zakef gadol. And the zakef gadol is, again, the two lines, but then you have a vertical line, which again looks like a metheg or whatever, to the left of it. And this zakef gadol can only occur in certain places, which I tell you. It's got to happen either as the first word of the verse, or it has to come after something like an athnach, or it can, I believe, occur right after a zakef gadol also. But again, normally it's in special situations. It can happen after an athnach, after a zakef katon like this, or at the beginning of the word. So if this is the beginning of the verse, not the word, but beginning of a verse, you could have one there. You usually don't have them piled up quite like I've got them now, like this. Usually, and again, zakef gadol means great zakef. It does mark the accented syllable, but really the small zakef is in many ways stronger than the great zakef. And I know that doesn't sound right, but it is. And so watch out for that. And so if you get that, that is breaking off. And usually when you see a zakef gadol, it does have some importance syntactically, either giving emphasis to this word or something. Usually it's pretty important when you see a zakef gadol. Take note of that. Finally, you get something called segulta. That's yet another breaker. Let me just rewrite my boxes. So these boxes again refer to words in a sentence. The segulta, however, can only occur in the athnach part of a verse. It will not happen in the suluk part, or the latter half. It can only happen in the first half. And it's like an inverted segul, and hence the name segulta, of course. And again, when you have it, it would break here. And the segulta, though, is called a post-positive. Positive meaning position, post meaning the post position. It's at the end of the word. It does not mark the accent. And so you've got to, it's always in the post position on the word, or it's at the very end of the words where you'll see this, the segulta. And again, the segulta is very much like a zakef katon, zakef katon, the small zakef, this one. If there is going to be a zakef katon, it'll have to occur after the segulta. Segulta will have to be first. Really, if you had one here, you could have here, you could have either the zakef, you really could not have the zakef here, but the zakef katon here, or you could have a zakef gadol. You could have either one. But the important thing I want to teach you right now is this, and again, I would group these three words together as I was translating, and then I would group these three, and then of course you're going to have to put them together on a larger level, obviously. But again, by breaking words up according to these accents, it can be a tremendous aid to you, and so you always want to keep that in mind. And as you go through some of these sentences that I'm doing, if you'll group the words by these accents, by putting a break after them, putting those words together, then the words after together, and then putting them all together, it's a great help. Finally, we have section 7, and here again we're dealing with third person forms, and this time it's third person plural. And so when we have a third person, you know, like amar is a third person verb in the singular. Now we want to do the plural. And when we do the plural, we're going to have a shurek at the end, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have a schwa under this R2 letter here. That's the way we're going to do it. And when we have that, this is they said, and then if you have a plural subject here, you wouldn't say they said. You'd say, like, let's say Moses and Aaron said. But if there is no explicit subject over here, you would just say they, and again, who the they refers to, you'd have to figure out by what's before it. If you have a verb that, like the word bana, that ends in a kametz he, like this. Of course, you know this means he built. But now if we're going to make this third person plural, we're going to get rid of this kametz he and simply put the shurek there, no vocal schwa, just like this. And now this means they built. And again, if you had a plural subject, the men built, or something like this. But if you did not have that subject there, again, you'd say they, and you have to know the they by the context. So again, with these third-person plural verbs, look for this shurek, and for most of your verbs, it's just going to be right on the end of it, but those that end in that kametz he, you'll get rid of the kametz he, put it there, no vocal schwa, and again, you'll have the they. So there is chapter 9. Now it's time for you to do the exercises.